You were told it was a sin, but what if it actually was pain? What if the thing you kept praying away was a very wound trying to speak? Tonight, we're not talking about rebellion. We're talking about survival that got labeled as failure. I'm your host, Edna White, and this is Unchurched, where we separate God from the systems that tried to control our identity. Tonight's guest is Daryl Dittmer. Am I saying it right? Did I get it?
You did.
And his story walks straight through addiction, religious conditioning, and the long road back to himself. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Edna. I really appreciate you having me on.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I was born in the Midwest, in Detroit, actually. My dad was a mechanic. My mom took care of us kids. And so that's from whence I came. And that part of the country, when I grew up, was really about Protestant work ethic. And it was about, here's what you're handed in terms of your belief system. And I was handed that belief system. And you know, it was okay for a period of time. And then things changed in my life. So just to lay a little bit of backdrop of from whence I came, and I'm sure we'll get to the rest.
Yes, absolutely. So take us back to the moment. What did you learn early about God and being good?
You know, it was fear-based. It was a Lutheran upbringing, and it was fear-based. I remember them telling us about Martin Luther, the guy that sort of came up with the Lutheranism, Lutheran religion, and he used to flog himself because he thought he did things wrong. And
Wow.
And it was just, but that was supposed to be okay. That was supposed to be like, oh, okay, this dude knows what's going on. And so that's what I was taught. And the scary thing for me when I was a kid was I pretty much figured that I was going to hell if I did certain things wrong. And I was not ever, and I'm still not clear, and I'm not Lutheran anymore, but I'm still not clear on what exactly it is somebody is supposed to do to make sure they can go to heaven. And that's a really scary place to be. And that's what I was handed as a kid.
A lot of us are there. And we try not to think about it. We just try to do what we can here, you know? And that's a great point. I love that. I love that about what you said. We don't really know what to do. So can you talk about, because I know that you went from, you know, in the religious background to, you know, your addiction. Can you talk about that? Like how it kind of like morphed, or even if it did?
It did morph, and the upbringing didn't really thwart my going into the drinking and the drugs and the crime and the lying, cheating, stealing.
Right.
And I'm not going to go too crazy on the story itself, but suffice it
to
say,
please tell us. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Well, you know, I went through drug and alcohol treatment. I was 19 years old, and I'm a couple of years past that now. But it was a progression, and it was a pretty quick progression where I drank and I loved it, and I didn't want to do anything else. That's kind of what I wanted to do, and as many opportunities as I could get to do that, I did it. And then I got involved in drugs and different kinds of drugs, many different kinds of drugs, and that progressed. And then I had to lie, and I had to cheat, and I had to steal to get where I wanted to go and get what I needed to get to support that addiction. And then I started dealing drugs, and it was just a very slippery slope. And the thing that was the most difficult about it was the rub between how I was raised and what I was taught and what I was doing, and that friction inside of me. And maybe it had to do with religion. Maybe it had to do with just, you know, I knew it was the things I was doing was wrong, but I do remember toward the end of the addiction, before I went into treatment, I remembered our pastor used to say, if you died right now, do you think you would go to heaven? He used to say this when we were a little kid. And I
Me
thought
too.
about
I've heard that too.
probably
Yes.
18 years old, and I didn't care. I didn't care at that point.
Right.
But that was a message for me. That was a message from me to me.
Right.
And I didn't really know it then, but and then it
That was
culminated
good.
into going into treatment. And that's where I like to say my second life started.
Yeah. Second chance. Yeah. At the time, did you believe you were broken or just failing spiritually?
I believed that my life was a disaster, and I wasn't exactly sure why. Because I was a kid, and I went into treatment just after I turned 19. So say I was, an 18-year-old kid, and I'm looking at my life, and I'm like, man, this is not cool. But I didn't know how to get out of it. I had no idea how to get out of it. So that made me dive deeper into it. So it's hard to remember how I characterized it, other than I'll tell you a quick story. January 3rd of 1985, which is the day I went into treatment. So a 3 nights before that was December 31st of 1984, and I was at a New Year's Eve party, and I was miserable, and I was around tons of friends, probably 100 or 200 people. It was a lot of people. And I'd never been so lonely, and I'd never felt so exposed and vulnerable, and I was just ripped in half. My soul was just ripped in half. And I thought at that time, that night, I thought, would it be better if I just killed myself? Would things be better if I just killed myself? And I didn't attempt it. But that kind of thought, that's where I was. That depicts where I was.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we had parallel experiences. I too, at 19, was at a party, and I felt so alone. Like I was like, everybody was having a great time. And it probably was because I was, drinking and drugging at the same time, but I felt so alone, and I was just sobbing. And that thought came to my mind to commit suicide. Yeah. And that was a sign, that was a complete sign. Like you said, it was a complete sign to myself, for myself. And I didn't even realize it, I didn't even realize it. It's so good. So let's slow it down a little bit, Daryl, because this is where people either blame themselves or finally understand themselves, because we seem to be right there. I'm going to ask a couple of questions so you can kind of give the audience, I believe Daryl has a lot of information that can help you, survive or get through this. So I want to ask a couple of questions around awareness. Okay. When the urge hit you, like at that point, were you actually ready to kind of come out of it, or did you make a transition and say, hey, I got to go to treatment?
I was my parents hit me with an intervention, and they said, hey, if
Gotcha.
we don't want you here unless you go. We don't want you in our lives, basically, unless you go talk to this drug counselor, drug and alcohol treatment counselor. And they left it up to me. They said,
They cared about you just that much, huh? That's good.
Yeah, do what you want.
Yeah, that's good.
But here's the consequences. And they had enough.
Right.
So I actually decided to go. So there was a little hint of light. And I planned on lying to this dude, like I did everybody else, about what was going on with me. But as soon as I walked into his office, he's like, man, don't lie to me. You can't lie to me. I'm going to call you on whatever you're handing me, and we're just going to get you out of here, and you're going to be in the same spot. And I'm 18 at that time, and I'm intimidated. So I said, you know, I was as honest as I
Right.
could be at that point in my life. Whatever that consisted of, I don't know, but
Right. Right.
that was the impetus to get me
Mhm.
into a treatment program.
Right. So it was more, was it pressure to you, or it was like you felt like emotionally, how did you feel about them saying that to you at that moment?
It was I'd done some scary things in my life. That was probably the scariest moment at that point
Hmm.
because I was found out. I was exposed, and I didn't. The most
Well, that's
painful thing
good.
to me was to be exposed and to feel like I'm letting everybody down. And that's exactly what I was doing. So that just tore me up inside. And I don't know if I'm articulating that well enough,
It's good.
because I
Yes.
cared, but I didn't care, and I wanted to not care probably more
Right.
than I didn't care. There was something in there that still
Mm.
cared, and that piece of me that still cared was able to see a little bit of light. And you know what, maybe this whole different life thing could work.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Looking back now, what did addiction do for you that religion told you it shouldn't do?
You know, it made me feel accepted. It made me
Hmm.
feel, as I was with, you know, the crowd that I hung out with, it made me feel when I was in the throes of it, and I
Right.
religion was supposed to make me feel whole and loved and encapsulated and protected and
Hmm.
all of that stuff. It for me, and I have nothing against religion, but for me,
Yeah. Yeah. I
didn't
understand.
it didn't work like
Right.
that for me. So I had to go somewhere else to find that. And you know, my parents were pretty tough human beings too, and
Hmm.
so, you know, was there love in the house? I guess so. I don't know exactly how it was characterized then. We
Right.
never said it. It wasn't like, you know, we weren't huggy or anything like that. It was
Right.
just, okay, you go work over here, you go work over here, I'm going to work here, and that's what we do. We just work.
Yeah. Right.
And so that
Gotcha.
I didn't have that accepted feeling necessarily from family or
Hmm.
from religion. And
Wow.
I had an accepted feeling in
Wow.
the nut jobs that I used to hang out with.
Right. Yeah.
And I think I gave that to
And in
them
the
too. And
throes
that
of
was our little,
drugs, you had that accepted feeling. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, that's
Like it
what
was
it gave me.
like
But then
things
it
were
turned on
gone.
me.
You could be in another place. You know, you didn't have to
Right.
feel that or think about that. You know, you're in a different place. Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. Um, did you feel more guilt from the behavior that you were displaying, or from not being able to be honest about that behavior?
Mm. I would say the behavior that I was displaying, because once I displayed the behavior, the honesty
Hmm.
was off the table.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be honest about it if I was going to engage in it. And so I had to engage in it,
Hmm.
and then I had to lie about it. And so that for me was probably the most difficult, because that's what was ripping me up
Right.
on the
Wow.
inside.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's serious. All right. So, what did your body finally get when you used? Like, was it relief, control, quiet, or permission?
You know, I most of the time I put myself into some sort of submission. There was a part where it was fun in the beginning, and sometimes, you know, like, oh, this dude's having a party, or this guy's doing this, or we're going to meet over here, or whatever. And it was all like, oh, we get to do this. And, you know, I'm We're going to be out all night.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be out for who knows, 2 days, 3 days, whatever. We're just going to go do stuff. And so sometimes the beginning of that was pretty enticing and fun, but then it was just this place where I put
Mm-hmm.
myself into some sort of a submission or daze or illness or whatever. I couldn't. My body wanted more than my body could handle, and that happened a lot.
Right.
It was just, I didn't know when to stop. I didn't know when to say, enough. I'm just going to coast.
Right.
I never coast.
Right. Because you were wanting something, you just didn't know what it was. It's sort of like a deep hole, The more you feed it, the more it needs.
Well, I had this big hole in the middle of my chest, and it was, it was impossible. I could not fill it with the drugs and the alcohol or the friends or the behaviors or, whatever it was. And that's the entire quest, right? That's, I believe that's the quest we're all on. We're all trying to find some wholeness. And sometimes we dart off in a crazy direction to find that wholeness. And that's exactly what I did. And I found out that particular direction absolutely doesn't work. And that hole keeps getting bigger, and it takes more to fill it. One of the things I like to say is, and I think this is really important, especially for people who are, struggling, is the deeper that we go into the weeds, the longer it takes to get out. And the deeper we go into the weeds, sometimes there's less of a chance, the deeper that we go, that we're going to come out. And it's very important to those moments of clarity and those moments where, what am I doing? Those are the moments where we have to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if somebody is listening, because I think you kind of answered a little bit of this question, that's struggling, or even a family member or friend of someone who's in addiction, and they think it means weakness, what would you tell them they're actually experiencing?
It's not weakness. It's really not. Some of the strongest people I know have found themselves in the throes of any addiction. It doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. It can be food. It can be gambling. It can be social media. It can be anything. And it's not weakness. It's misdirection. It's misdirected energy, in my opinion. Good. And I'm putting my energy into something that is not fulfilling for me. I think it is, but it's not. And so the energy needs to go in a different direction. It has nothing to do with weakness. It truly does not.
That's good. I love that what you're saying. That is so good. Oh my. I am excited about getting to the next part. So I want to anchor this, and if you could give this first part a one sentence, what would it be?
This first part that we just did?
That we just went through, what would you give it? What sentence would you give it for the audience?
An understanding of an understanding of addiction and of ourselves in addiction.
Oh, that's good. And for all you people out there in the audience who are experiencing this, we need to listen to this. And I hope you have a pen, or maybe replay this a couple of times, because we are definitely going to be talking more and more about this, because I'm excited to just hear what he has to say on this next part. So thank you for that anchor to get us like kind of in a place. So this is our impact section, and I think we're going to kind of blend this with religion and the addiction. people in religious environments often don't get help. They get correction instead of healing. What happened to you, in that arena?
I when I first got out of treatment, and I don't I maybe have been in a church once, okay, we'll say 3 times since. So that was a long time ago. And I was introduced to the 12
Yeah.
steps, and people, get all ooh about the 12 steps.
Mm-hmm.
12 steps is just a roadmap for living. That's all it is. And it's a way to
Right. Okay.
find
Say that again.
ourselves.
Say it loud so they can hear that, please. That's important.
The 12 steps is just
That's
a
really
roadmap
important.
for living.
That.
And I've been doing it for a long time, and I
Mhm.
promise you there's a lot of misconceptions about the 12 steps, and it really is just a roadmap. And so
Right.
if I do the roadmap,
I love that.
and how they characterize it is
Right.
is 3 steps within the 12 steps. And I don't want this to scare anybody away, because it shouldn't. But what they say is trust God, clean house, help others. That's what it's about. Has nothing to do with religion, has nothing to do with
Mm-hmm.
church, has nothing to do with somebody telling you what
Oh,
you
that's
have to
good.
believe. And that's absolutely true. Now, not to say that when you go to a specific meeting, somebody will say, "Oh, well, you need to do this," and people, pounding over the head with, "Oh, you have to do this and this." But that's not the intent of the program. And I don't want to go on too long on this, Edna, but my sponsors or mentor was one of the first 50
Mm-hmm.
people in the program. And so
Mm-hmm.
he got it like right from the beginning, and what it was actually designed to do. And what it's designed to do is to fill that hole, but not by, I join a group and I
Right.
have to
Right.
follow the group's rules. If you get involved like I did, I did it because I was desperate to have a different life. And I was desperate for that roadmap because I was young and I didn't
Right. Right.
understand anything about
Right.
life or about recovery, nothing. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand any of it. And so it gave me a plan. And
Right.
so I started to be able to fill that hole. And I'll leave it there, because there's a lot more than that, but I know you're going to capture it in your questions, Edna. So
Yeah.
we'll leave it there for the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a big proponent for how you speak to others, right? Big
Mm,
proponent in what you say to them. And as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, some words or phrases I hear differently. So I know for addiction, I've heard a lot of my clients and people that I've talked to always said, "What happened to you?" When people hear that in addiction, what are they really hearing? Like, even when they say, when they say those words, "What happened to you?" What are they really hearing, and how do you think it makes them feel?
I think it makes, if somebody were to say that to me at my most vulnerable,
Hmm.
it would have crushed me.
Yes.
It would have been,
Right.
it wouldn't have been what happened to you. What I would have heard is, what is wrong with you? And why are
Yeah.
you so messed up? And that sort of thing would have been what I heard. Now, and I'll take that into recovery and say, if somebody said that to me 10 years in recovery, I would have been, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing fine. Thank you. Thanks for caring. They said at 20 years, it would have been a little better. At this point,
Hmm.
somebody says, "What's wrong with you?" I wouldn't care. And
Right.
and and that's filling the hole. That's the
Right.
evidence of filling that hole.
Right.
And like you, I want to help everybody fill that
Right.
hole for themselves,
Right.
because that's what makes us have a really cool world. is people filling that hole for themselves in a very real way.
Right. That's good. Well, this is good. Audience, this is good stuff. This is good stuff that Mr. Daryl is giving us today. Daryl, when did you realize that the cycle wasn't spiritual failure, but it was conditioning?
I probably realized that I don't look at anything about me as done, like,
Right. Oh, good.
stick
That's
the
good.
thermometer in him, he's done,
Yeah.
he's fine. I
That's
just
good.
don't look at it like that. I look at the whole
Uh-huh.
journey is the whole journey until I'm not on this journey anymore.
Right.
In this body, in this place. And
Right.
so, it's always, I'm always looking to improve myself and show up for my life and help other people. And, the more I can do that, the more effective I am. So did I have a spiritual malady? I did, but it was the energy directed in the wrong way.
Well, that's good.
And
Yes.
there was conditioning involved, but that conditioning was the people who were conditioning me had their energy directed in the wrong way. And I can't blame them because
Right.
because they were doing what they thought at that time in their lives based on everything that they were dealing with. I have to believe, and I don't have to believe, but I do believe they were doing the best they can. There are things in my family going back where, just crazy, bad stuff. And it has to do with my mom's side of the family and my mom, having a real tough time in her life.
Right.
And so, that kind of thing, whether anybody means to or not, it gets passed down.
It sure does.
You get,
That's right.
we get to receive that. And then I have my issues. And then when I get to a certain place in my life, for me, it was 19. I feel fortunate. I was young, but I had to pull my life apart and I had to look at it and I had to decide to do things differently. But there was no, I'm so grateful for that now, honestly. I just, because a lot of people will float for a while because the consequences aren't bad enough. And floating is probably the worst, because if I'm not intentional and I'm not conscious, I'm floating. And I prefer, and I wouldn't say this 40 years ago, but I prefer to get my butt handed to me, go into treatment, come out, and have to change. And that's what I was faced with at that point in my life. So I rambled a little.
That's tough. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so here's the part that I kind of put together, and there are three edgy questions that you can answer yes or no, or you can decide to elaborate. So you can say yes or no too. So you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think religion kept you stuck longer than the addiction itself?
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate?
Sure, I will elaborate. And again, for me, nothing against religion, but when I got handed that box of stuff and I'm told you have to believe this and you have to believe this and you have to believe this, or you might go to hell.
Right.
That's a very scary place to be. And for me, it was very impactful. And so unwinding that, and it's been unwound for a while, but that carried into, recovery. It carried into my life, whether I, went to church or anything or not.
Right.
Those memories were there. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. Was sobriety harder or rebuilding your identity outside the belief system? Which one?
Building my identity was harder, because I was left with this mess on the floor that was Daryl, and I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. It hits me emotionally when I say that, because I had to pick up all those pieces and I had to figure it out. And there were people around me that helped me, but it was up to me to start putting that Daryl back together. And the mess that I couldn't look people in the eye. I couldn't hold a conversation. I was not a capable human being at that point. And so I had to pick all those things up and put them back together. So that was a big job, but I was able to do that with more and more conscious intent as time went on. And the very interesting thing, Edna, is a lot of my belief system got stripped away, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because all those little boxes of stuff that I was told I had to believe, I was able to get rid of those. And then my beliefs expanded, in a very serious way, which is good. Which is really cool. It's like the Big Bang. It just keeps going.
Yes.
And I keep
Yes, absolutely. So true. I'm telling you, what you're saying about just getting rid of that, just once I got rid of it, I mean, just got rid of it. It was like a circle fit in that square, but just trying to fit in there. It once I just got rid of the box and said, let me just start over, it really made sense. Everything just blossomed like a flower.
Yeah. And the really cool thing, and I think about this now because I think, what would my pastor say? But I study Carl Jung, and I study Taoism, I study Buddhism, and I study all this stuff, and I love it. And it's all, it's like the same stuff. I mean, it's all about building me and so expanding those ways of thinking, because people didn't come to these belief systems. They came to them because they wanted to heal, and they started to learn how to heal, and then they passed down how they healed. And I want to know what that is, for as much as I can understand. I want to know what that is, and it's really cool.
Yeah. That's good. Last question on this segment. Did you ever feel God was safer than the people who represented him?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The people that represented God. So I'll say this. This is a quick little story. So Joseph Campbell, one of my favorite writers, mythology, all that, wonderful stuff. Hero with 1,000 Faces, great books. And I listened to one of his things he did back in the 80s. I listened to it all the time. I was listening to it today. Every time I get something out of it. But there was a Hindu student that was coming to America, and the Hindu student said, I like to understand where I'm going and the belief systems. And so I bought a Bible, and over the months, I went through the Bible, and I read the Bible and took it in and all that stuff. And he said, you know what I didn't find in it? I didn't find religion.
Oh, that's
good. And that's a really cool thing. And that's the difference to me between God and the people who represent God. Because I always felt like the people who represent God want something from me.
That's good.
And I don't think God does.
That's good. Love it, love it, love it, love it. So when you were going through all of this at 19, right? What were you actually trying to soothe that no one was helping you name?
There was a lot of pressure on me as a young person. I'm the middle child, which I love
Mm-hmm.
because I still don't know exactly what that means, but people talk about it.
No, I love it. No, I love talking about that too. I just talked about it yesterday, so you can talk about it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Anyway, so I don't know exactly what that means, but and you know what? I just lost my train of thought. So where was I going with this?
I don't know what you was gonna say. You were middle child. You were the middle child.
Yes. And what was the original? What was the original?
Okay,
Uh,
so what were you actually trying to soothe that no one was helping
yes,
you name?
yes. So I was the middle child, but I was the older brother to my older brother. I kind of took care of him at some point,
Okay,
and
okay,
my brother and my sister, they didn't really do that much, and I was into sports and stuff. So, and I was getting good grades when I was young and
hmm
before, the wheels came off the wagon, and so I was looked at for, I believe my parents were living vicariously through me. Nobody had ever gone to college or
right,
graduated from college in my family, that sort of thing. And
right, right.
so they had these high hopes for me, and it,
hmm
at some point it just got to be too much for me. And I know I haven't done I've done, plenty of sort of inner child, look
Right,
in, face things, all that sort of stuff,
right,
breakdown. I've done a lot of that work. And I know there's things in there that I don't know.
right.
And I'm convinced, and I'm open to, if something uncorks and I know what it is, and
hmm
I find out, great. And if I don't, then I'm probably not meant to.
Right.
Because I feel like I've cleaned out my system pretty well and I keep it
hmm
clean. So there are things that I know. One of them is just the inadequacy and the pressure and the, why are you guys looking at me to
Right.
for how you feel? Like, don't look at me for how you feel. What I accomplish should not do anything to you. Like, go do your own stuff. That was kind of where I was, what I was covering up and what I wanted to be released
Yes.
from. Like, just
Yes.
let me be. So that's what I know. I don't know what I don't
That's
know,
good.
but there's something there.
Right. Yeah. What beliefs about yourself had to break before the addiction did?
One of the things that I got out of the treatment facility was hope. And and 18, 19 years old, I think, even though I'm an absolute disaster area, I'm not very teachable yet. And one of the things that had to
Mhm.
break in me was I needed to garner some humility. I needed to garner some teachability.
Right.
I needed to listen to people who knew more than me. And at that point in my life, everybody did. So that's one of the things that needed to I guess break for me and move in a different direction. Being able to listen, and then willingness to do what it takes. That's a big one, because to me, when I look back at addiction, and in some ways, and I'm not blaming anyone that's mired in addiction or myself when I was mired in addiction, but it's the easy way out, quote unquote. It's the easy way out. It's really tough. It's really tough to live in a way where I'm showing up for my life and I'm willing to do the difficult things, and I'm willing to say, you know what, I don't feel like it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that needed to break in me. I needed to become willing where I was unwilling, and it did. And that's what I teach people today. I teach them to show up for their lives, and I don't mean
Right.
lowercase show up. I mean uppercase show up.
Well, that's good. That's good. So, how can the audience ask you questions, get in touch with you? And what's your next move? What's your next move?
The best way to get in touch with me is you can email me with any questions. I'll help anybody that I can. So you can email me at Daryl. It's on the screen there, Daryl at DarylDittmer.com. That's one way to find me if you want to ask any questions. And my website is DarylDittmer.com if you want to check that out. I am moving into, and I've written a couple of books but mainly about my story and really with the intent of helping people. I want to share my story so that I can help. And that's what I'm in the process of doing. And I'm also in the process of becoming a coach or a mentor for people on a more formal basis. I've done a lot of mentoring and helping people, but I'm doing it a little more formally now, and that's my next step.
Oh, that's great. So, audience, if you grew up believing struggle meant you lacked faith, you listened to Daryl speak about his life and share nuggets of gold with us today. You didn't fail God. You adapted to survival environment that couldn't hold honesty. Healing starts with the moment you stop performing spiritually and start telling the truth, just like Daryl said. Daryl, I want to thank you for bringing honesty into this conversation where many people are afraid to have it and say things out loud. You did today. And to everyone watching, recovery isn't leaving God. Sometimes recovery is finally meeting him without the middleman. This is Unchurched. If tonight's conversation stirred you or got you thinking about something, please don't forget that you can speak to Daryl Dittmer.com or you can speak to me. But either way, leave a comment on the bottom of this video or the audio, and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much for listening and being here today. We appreciate you. And remember, talk to somebody about this. Tell them about Daryl. Tell them about me. And you'll be better for it. We're going to say goodbye for now.
Thank you, Edna.